thanks very much. Decision 2016 coverage now. We're beginning a series of 6 conversations with 4 men and 2 women looking for your votes in the upcoming spring election. We've invited the candidates for Milwaukee Mayor, County Executive, and State Supreme Court to appear at this time here live with us on TMJ4. And our first guest is State Supreme Court Justice Rebecca Bradley, originally from Milwaukee, and she was appointed to the State Supreme Court by Governor Scott Walker just last fall, is running for a full 10-year term on the state's high court now. Her opponent is appeals judge Joanne Kloppenberg, who is scheduled to appear with us coming up on March 28th. And Justice Bradley joins us now live here on TMJ4. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me on, Vince.
Well, I mentioned the governor appointed you. You've had several months now on the high court. I'll start you off with this. Were there things that caught you by surprise, things that you've learned in the last few months that you hadn't expected about serving in that capacity?
Well, I think a lot of people, when they think about a judge or a justice on a court, they think about us deciding cases. But in addition to that responsibility, we also have supervisory and administrative authority over the entire court system in Wisconsin. That takes up quite a bit of our time as well.
It's a different deal, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you about this. You've had to spend the last couple of weeks answering questions about things that you wrote back when you were in college for the student newspaper at Marquette University. Your opponent seized on some of those writings, calling it anti-gay, calling you unfit to serve on the bench, and even branding it as hate speech. Do you feel like in the last couple of weeks you've adequately apologized for what you wanted to say you were sorry for, and that you can move past this?
I really do, Vince. I've offered and continue to offer an unconditional apology not only to the gay community but to everyone in the state of Wisconsin for the things that I wrote quarter of a century ago as a college student. Like many people, I've grown as a person since college, and those writings in no way reflect the person I am today.
Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark has long been a supporter of yours at several levels, and you've tapped him in a new ad who's speaking on you, in your defense and promoting your record. I'm curious why you would ask David Clark, I know he's been a supporter of you, but why you'd ask him to be in an ad. You've worked so hard to brand yourself as an independent jurist in this case, but David Clark no doubt is a very controversial figure. Why go to him and have him appear in the ad?
Well, I have support across the political spectrum from Democrats and Republicans, from sheriffs, district attorneys, and judges, and I'm happy to accept the help and support from people like Sheriff Clark. As I've said, I don't agree with everything that every one of my supporters says or does. I couldn't possibly, because I have such a great diverse group of supporters. Let
me ask you about that issue of judicial independence. And it's not unique to this race. You usually have 2 candidates both trying to establish themselves as the independent jurist, and the opponent being the one who is beholden to some sort of political interest. In this case, anyone who's been paying attention views you as the conservative justice, Joanne Kloppenberg as the liberal justice. Why not just own that? Say, I'm a conservative, these are my values, and this is how people can expect me to rule on these cases.
Because my judicial philosophy, I think, is the central issue in this election, in this race. My judicial philosophy is to set aside my personal opinions, my policy preferences, my political inclinations. We all have those, but the job of a justice is to set all of that aside, apply the law as it's written by the people's elected representatives in the legislature, to apply the law as it's written in our state and federal constitutions. And true judicial independence means that sometimes we don't like the outcome in a case. We may not even like the law that we're called upon to apply, but we have to set all of that aside and apply the law whether we like it or not, and whether we like the outcome or not. And that's the one commitment that I make to the voters in Wisconsin in this race.
They're hollering at me because I'm out of time, but I do want to follow up on that. So on the issue of judicial review, it seems like whichever side loses the battle in the legislature is immediately running to court and looking for a legal settlement, and then it's appealed and appealed and appealed. Do you feel too often that's being used as a tool, state level, federal level? You're seeing it everywhere.
Well, a lot of these issues relate to constitutional interpretation, and that's actually the type of case that we are supposed to take as a Supreme Court. Important issues of constitutional law, when they're presented to us, it's actually in the statutes of Wisconsin that's the type of case we should look at taking.
Well, best of luck to you the next couple of weeks for the campaign, and good luck on April 5th.
Thank you, Vince.
All right, and